How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel, Pete's Carport, and we're going to dive right back into Barney, which is a 1995 Mercedes S500 sitting right behind me, and it is a car that I originally had on this channel, sold off to a subscriber, and now I am dedicating to getting all the things working right so he can daily drive this car. Now, the last video, we went ahead and changed out all the fluids, and it made a world of difference. The car is running a lot cooler. We did the coolant flush on it, and the car is just driving overall better. We did the fuel filter on it, and did a couple other regular maintenance things. Today I want to tackle the brakes and maybe dive into some other things. I don't know how much time we're going to have, but let's dive into the brakes. I went ahead and bought some new rotors. Now, this car recently had new brake pads put on, but I think it just needed new rotors, and it definitely needs a brake fluid flush. So let's go ahead and take care of that. We're also going to probably take a look at what could possibly be causing the vibration. I know these tires have some flat spots now that they've been sitting. That's definitely causing some vibrations, and we had already dove into a ton of things in past videos on fixing vibrations on this car, but there are a few more things I want to take a look at. So let's dive into the brakes, and then we'll dive into some other things, and hopefully we get a lot done on this video and the car starts driving even better. So let's get going. All right, before we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at the parts we have here. I went ahead on FCP Euro and ordered some OEM replacement brake rotors. These are ATE original, and it is a brand of Continental. The part number's down here, and I'll leave that in the description. And we're gonna be replacing the brake lines as well on each one of these front brakes, and that's the part there. This is something I ordered in for my Porsche 944 and absolutely love it. It's a power bleeder. Works insane. So I think this is gonna fit onto the WN40, so I'm excited about that. If this works, I'll leave a link to that, but that will allow us to bleed out all the old fluid, get rid of all the air bubbles, and add our new fluid in, which I'm gonna show you guys the fluid that we'll be using as well. I gotta grab that, but let's go ahead and get started. We gotta take our calipers off here, and as you can see, like I said, the brake pads are pretty new, so we're not gonna replace those. These rotors, I did take off an S600, but I have a feeling they might be warped, so I do want to get them turned and probably hold on to them if they're able to be turned again. So I don't know the thickness on them, but I wanted to eliminate any vibration by getting a brand new set of rotors. So let's go ahead and take these ones off, swap our new ones on, bleed out the system, and move forward. All right, so I'm gonna start by taking the brake line off. I thought it was a 15 millimeter, but this seems to be a little too loose, so maybe it's a 14 millimeter, but try to use a brake line wrench when you can. I'm gonna remove this bottom part first before we remove our calipers. So I'm just gonna use an opened end crescent wrench here. And because I'm in Florida, it comes off nice and easy, so I don't have to worry too much. But for you guys up north, make sure you use some penetrating fluid. And this thing's gonna spin. I might need to remove this top part here as well. That one seems to have a 17 mil on the bottom section, so I'm gonna try to get it off with that real quick. All right, so I am gonna have to hold the upper part of this line. I think it's a 12 mil, maybe an 11 mil. 12 mil seems to hold on to it. And then we're gonna use our 17 mil line wrench here to crack this thing completely open. All right, so it's actually an 11 mil. I found an 11 mil, so I went ahead and used that to hold this top part. And now we'll be able to crack this open nice and easy. There we go. Go ahead and remove the caliper. And I think these are 19 mil bolts on the back. Yeah, these are 19 mil on the back of the caliper, so let's go ahead and get that. I left a lot of my tools back at my shop, my coffee shop, because I've been opening up 2 new coffee shops. That's why I haven't been doing many videos. And I have all my tools in my van over at the shop. So unfortunately, I'm just having to use what I've got around here. So all manual tools, no electric tools. So it might take a little bit longer, but it's still easily done. And I can show you guys how it can be done with minimal tools too. All right, so we'll be able to pull our caliper off here and twist off the main hose line. Try to get it so you can catch the fluid. I try to do a lot less editing on this video. I'm just going to kind of run through it, maybe cut some parts out to make it faster. That way you guys can see it in more real time. right, this should come. All right, so I always forget you want to turn the upper hard line while holding the lower bottom line so it doesn't twist up. Otherwise, it's going to spin into circles, and we're still attached to this bracket down here. So we're going to have to undo that bracket to get this line out, but just using the 11 mil up top and loosening that up, and then our hose should just come right out. All right, so I actually think you have to take off this dust shield to remove this little bracket. I don't remember exactly how, but I'm going to go ahead and take off our rotor. We're going to take off this little 5mm Allen screw that holds it in. Once again, if you're where there's rust, you want to go ahead and lubricate that, because those things will get rusted and they will strip out, and then you got to drill them out, and they're a pain in the ass. I've had that happen before. And just like that, our rotors are off. And man, these do look good. Definitely going to look into getting these turned again and see if we can hold on to them. But let's get those new ones on, pulled out of the box. Clean them down with some brake cleaner first. So let me go ahead and grab those out and clean them down. All right, guys, so I went ahead and I tried to remove the dust shield thinking that I would be able to access this bracket here from the dust shield, but it's actually, you gotta bend the dust shield to get to it. Obviously you take the dust shield off, but I can't get the dust shield to move, and I removed the 4 Allen keys, and it feels like it's gonna come off, but it's just sitting there. So I just bent this forward, and then you can use that same 5mm Allen key into this hole here, and then you've got a nut on there that's, I think, 17mm. Let me see what I need to do to get to this. It's been a while since I've worked on these. I did change out the linkage there for the sway bar, and I knew I had to do this. There we go. So all you got to do is be able to hold this nut, and you can turn the Allen key to get it off. Well, guys, just because I said I'm going to do this in as much real time as I can, I made a big mistake. You do not need to remove this dust shield, and I'm not sure what got recorded because it's so hot out today, guys. My phone shut off while recording, so I don't know if it cut anything off, but you do not need to take this dust shield off. And only thing that benefited from that was I did need to tighten this bracket up, so I got that nut on there a little bit tighter, and I used a 16mm wrench. So I was able to get that 16mm wrench in there. So I did need to access it anyways. It did tighten this strut bar linkage up a little bit, so that might help. But of course I ended up breaking the little plastic bracket that holds our ABS little sensor here, and it was brittle. So we're gonna get the new brake line through. I'm gonna show you guys why you don't need to remove it. There's a little grommet on here, and that just kind of pulls through the little hole on this bracket. So very, very simple. And we're just gonna fish this back through the way it was and get that grommet to line up. Well, I'm sure some of you guys noticed earlier, but the wire that goes to the brake sensor here that tells the car when the brake pads are getting low is broken off. And I don't remember when that happened, but there is no light on the dash. Of course, I'm gonna go ahead and replace this. I'll probably order a new one of these or just pull it from the parts car, but right now it's not doing anything. Also, I forgot these brakes do squeak up front because I don't think I lubricated them well enough, or just didn't lubricate them at all when I put the pads in. They are ceramic pads. So I'm gonna run down and get some lubrication, and we'll kind of clean these up and lubricate all the parts so we don't get any more squeaking. Always recommend to do that, especially if you've already got everything out. You might as well go ahead and do it. Go ahead and grab some of that lubrication. We'll lube our brake pads up, and we'll get everything hooked back up. All right, guys, I went ahead and got my set screw in there. I had a difficult time getting that on. I usually don't, and I remembered that's because we bent our dust shield. Something I want to point out, because I get a lot of people that mention this: if you don't bend your dust shield back properly, even if you jacked your car up from here, playing around with suspension components, these dust shields will make a terrible noise going down the road. And also, they can bind up, and you can see my rotor's barely able to spin. So what I'm going to do is go through here and bend back, make sure our dust shield's completely out of the way, nothing's touching, and then we'll be able to put our caliper back on. We'll clean down our rotor once again. So you want to make sure you put your hose line back on before putting your caliper back on, because you won't be able to turn this end of your hose line. So the easiest way to do that is to just twist your caliper once you line up the threads. All right, nice and tight. Now we can slide our caliper on. I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit of Loctite on our caliper bolts. And my rule of thumb is if it's a brake component that has a lot of vibration, specifically, I'm gonna go ahead and put Loctite on. So let me go ahead and grab that. Well, guys, you learn something new every day. I'm sure people are going to blow up the comments saying, of course, you clean behind your rotors on the hub, but not something I even thought about because they weren't rusted. They weren't corroded. It was barely just a little bit of dust that looked like it was on there, but obviously it was creating an issue because look at how straight that is spinning now. That is unreal. Just a few minutes ago, I put this on and it was wobbling so bad. The only reason why I really noticed it is because it was hitting that dust shield. Now, this has been an issue for a while, obviously, because I've heard that kind of as I'm going down the road because I knew the dust shield was kind of bent out of place. My goal was just to bend the dust shield back out, and I figured that would fix the issue. But now that I think about it, since it was an inconsistent hitting of the back of the brake rotor, it was probably dirt or dust behind that rotor the entire time, causing it not to sit flat. So hopefully this actually fixes a lot of my vibrations because I've done so much work to the suspension and other components to try to fix this vibration. And I gotta be honest, I noticed it in the past too, and I thought the S600 rotors I put on here were possibly warped and that was causing vibration. I don't think they were warped. I just think that there was corrosion or just a little bit of dirt behind the rotor itself. Let's go ahead and pull that other one off, like I said, clean that one down, and let's take her for a ride after we bleed these brakes, see if it fixes it. I gotta admit, I feel kind of dumb, and I know this is probably an automatic for most of you people out there, especially up north, but I just didn't think about it because I pulled off the old rotors. They came off very easily, slid the new ones on, and I just kept moving, but these obviously need to be cleaned down every time you pull your rotor. So we're just gonna use some brake cleaner, a metal brush, get all this corrosion and crap off of here. And now I've got a little bit on the inside of my rotor as well too. It's kind of funny. So I think this is gonna make a difference. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you've ever experienced this where you put a rotor back on, there was corrosion behind it, and you had a wheel wobble. So guys, we're finally moving on to the brake flush, brake bleed part of this video, and I wanted to fill you in because I'm using the Motive Power Bleeder, and yes, it does work, and it is amazing, gonna save me a ton of time. I've already went ahead and bled out the rear. I bled those out because we're removing all of the old fluid. Now, this is what the fluid looked like from one of the calipers, and I basically bled it till it was clear. So that's kind of how you push all the fluid out. You add some new fluid in as it gets lower. Now with this brake bleeder, it is a little bit of a pain in the butt because you have to hook it up, pump it up, start bleeding, and then you have to add your fluid. So what I ended up doing was starting with my right passenger side, my rear passenger side, and I bled that out until all the fluid was gone. So that basically pulled all the fluid out of my reservoir. I added fresh fluid, bled that till there was no air, and then moved on to getting rid of all the fluid in this line till it became clear. So that's the way that I did it, and it worked out really well. Now this Motive Power Bleeder does work, and I highly suggest it, especially if you're doing this by yourself. All you do is you screw this piece onto the cap. Now Mercedes made it really annoying, as you guys can see here, where your brake reservoir is located up underneath this cover here. I cheated. I put a piece of block under here, took off the main screw here, and I used a funnel that I could fit into there nice and easily, which does have a built-in screen to add my brake fluid. So right now where I'm at is I'm going to start these front brakes. So I'm going to go ahead and take my brake bleeder off, make sure I'm topped off here so we don't run out of fluid, because then you got to re-bleed the entire system. So make sure you do have fluid in there the whole time you're bleeding these out. We're going to move on to that side, and I'm probably going to show you guys this side because there's going to be a ton of air pockets caught up in these front brakes because we let that kind of drain out. So that'll be the fun part of watching that kind of drain out and just seeing how awesome this thing is. Now, once you've got that screwed on the cap, all you do is pump it up like you would any type of tire pump till it reaches, I mean, it's not as important with brakes, so you want to probably be around 11, 12 PSI, and it will hold that pretty much through the entire brake bleeding part of each caliper, so you don't have to keep pumping it, which is really nice. If you're doing a clutch, which you can do with this, and I use this to bleed out the clutch on my 944, you need a little bit more PSI. But for brakes, it doesn't matter as long as the fluid is moving, you're gonna get rid of those air pockets. So let me go ahead and set up and show you guys how this is all gonna come out. I can't wait to take this thing for a ride and just see how much better it rides, how much better it stops. I'm excited, let's get going. All right, we got our reservoir filled up. I've got the brake bleeder pumped up to around 11 PSI. Put some towels around my caliper, and you're gonna be using a 9mm. Try to use a line wrench. I can't find one that's 9mm. I can't even find an open end that's 9mm right now. So I'm gonna use a socket, which is gonna be a little more difficult because the fluid could start squirting out through the socket. So that's why I placed down some towels. But I'm gonna place this cup right here. This is gonna have a fair amount of air in the line, so we're going to crack it and we should hear it bubble. Oops. And you can see there it's kind of bubbling, and we can see old fluid coming out because it's like a dark brown, and then it should turn to a more clear color. That means it will be on the new fluid. There it goes. It's a little clearer there, and we can see no more air bubbles are coming out. I'm going to let it go a little bit longer just to make sure everything's bled out. There's no strange air pockets in there. And that should do it. You guys can see how much easier it is to bleed the brakes out with that Motive Power Bleeder. So highly suggest, I'll leave a link in the description for you guys. Make sure you get the proper fitting for that reservoir. And what's cool about it, it works on a Porsche, obviously, and probably many other cars. A lot of those caps are very universal, especially with these European cars. So that about wraps it up, guys. I'm gonna take it for a ride. I'll fill you guys in right at the end of this video how everything went. I'm pretty excited. Let me clean everything up, get these tires back on, and take her for a nice quick drive. Well, guys, I got to take her on a nice long ride, and unfortunately, the vibration's still there, but we still have to look at those tires. I still want to get the car aligned, and I think I forgot to mention the elephant in the room over here. This duct-taped bumper on here. Now, I have had so many issues with bumpers on WN40s. Hey, Bear, how's it going? My cat decided to come over and say hi. Now, this bumper has been messed up for a while, and you can see it kind of hangs low, and I took it to the store and got it hooked on the curb while backing out, and the whole thing almost ripped off. So that's definitely another thing we've got to fix. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to do a lot more like this, where it's not necessarily dedicated to fixing one part, but trying to dive into things and figuring them out and just kind of going with it. You guys have an awesome day, a blessed week, and I'll catch you on the next video.